Thank you all for joining. Really appreciate it. Today we've got a special speaker, George Tung of CryptosRus. This is the inaugural call for the industry AMA, a series of Google Web Talks, Web3 Talks. So super excited to have everybody here today. Let's do a little bit of background on George before we get started. George is the founder of CryptosRus, but in the previous lifetime, he focused on working in IT, something we're all familiar with, cloud and computing. And he's been around involved with Bitcoin in the crypto space since 2013. And he's always tracking the latest trends. He does 2 broadcasts a day, one at market open and one in the evening time during the week. And he founded CryptosRus in 2017. He's got roughly 650,000 YouTube subscribers. So a lot of interest in the world, in the community for George. And he calls himself the biggest hopium dealer on YouTube, which I think everybody could use a little bit of hopium, especially in the times that we live in. Additionally, he does do a newsletter and also has a CryptosRus Academy. So welcome, George, to this chat. Happy to have you.
Thanks for the invite. Quite exciting. Quite exciting to speak to you all. It seems like from the chat, a lot of you guys already do watch me and do know what I'm all about. But I'm here to talk more crypto, more Web 3.0, and more trends. So glad to be here.
Wonderful. Yeah, we are happy to have you. Obviously, I've been a fan for quite some time, and we have a lot of folks on the line who have been a fan for a long time as well. So glad that we can lasso you in and chat with you today. I guess the first thing I'd really like to understand is being in this industry for so long and understanding this industry for so long. Like, can you tell us about how you got into it? Like, what was the aha moment? Really just a little bit about your background and your intro to crypto.
Yeah. So it kind of started back in 2013. Honestly, I've been a stock investor for quite some time, since the dot-com bubble. And I say investor loosely because back then I just didn't really know what I was doing. So I lost a bunch with the dot-com bubble. Then, fast forward to 2007, 8, 9, right? That's when we had another bubble, the housing bubble, and I lost a whole bunch there too. So I was really, really, really against investing for a long time. And I just kept my head low and said, hey, you know what? I got to keep going, right? So that's what I did in IT, just really focused on IT. But then in 2013, I started reading up on this thing called Bitcoin. I'm like, what is this? And then I started reading up on how you actually create Bitcoin through mining. I'm like, wow, this is like a fairy tale. This is like what we all wish we had, which is a money tree. And literally, you can build a money tree. You could build a mining machine and generate these digital currencies that are actually worth something. They're not just like an in-game token or something like that. No, it's actually something that you could sell for. So I got in late 2013. Unfortunately, it was towards the top when Bitcoin first hit around $1,000. Mining back then was very... for Bitcoin, it was transitioning from CPU and GPU mining to the ASIC miners. So what I did was get into Litecoin mining. At that time, script mining, still using GPUs, very much like the mining rigs that Ethereum miners were using. Basically, you have a motherboard, you have these extender cards, and you plug in all these GPUs that are running 24/7, and that was quite an experience. And that's how I got in. I was actually a Litecoin miner for about 4 or 5 months. And then the market went down. Bitcoin dropped significantly. Litecoin dropped significantly. And I got out. And I'm like, oh, man, another bubble that I got in. And I got burned, right? A third one. And then, as I aged, as I got older, and in 2017, Bitcoin came back up to 1,000. I'm like, okay, maybe I was wrong about, cryptocurrencies, right? So that's when I really, really started learning about what it was about. Because back in 2013, 14, like most people that get into space, I was just chasing the gains. I was just chasing chasing the money, not really understanding what Bitcoin and crypto or decentralization or blockchain or all of these things were about. So, but that's when in 2017, that's when things changed. So I started really paying attention, really diving in, and that's when I started to understand. And now I didn't understand everything. It takes some time, but after I understood, you know, then I became more, I guess, more bullish, and and
Yeah.
you know, that's carried, you know, with me since then, because I've ridden a couple cycles, a couple up and down cycles, and I can understand how a lot of people, if they don't understand what this is really about, they just think, okay, this could be a pump and dump or something like that. But if you truly understand, and you've lived through some of these cycles, then I think, you know, you're thinking of money, you're thinking of payment networks, the future of apps or slash dApps will really change if you come to understand these things. And that's what I try to do and educate people on every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I think about how I started. Maybe everybody has a similar story where they're kind of chasing the coin and be like, oh, I'm gonna become a millionaire in 5 minutes. You know, that's not really a thing. And the education will help you understand that. And so I appreciate, you know, what you do in that sense. And for me, it's been very helpful as well. So in these times when you go up and down, like, is it just that you've lived through it that you could say be the biggest hopium dealer on YouTube or something? I just kind of want to peel back that phrase a little bit and kind of put that in context to what you gave us in the beginning.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that start channels or start their social media journey, especially if they're concentrating on crypto. They started when things are good, because whenever there is a bull trend, whenever there's massive price appreciation, and draws in a lot of people, not just retail, but also people that want to create channels and talk about things, social media, and they gain a lot of followers, a lot of subscribers really quickly. But then, you know, when things come down, they never survived a crypto winter or a down market, and they never, I would say, never truly understood what this whole space was about. So then you see a lot of them kind of die off. A lot of them turn very bearish. A lot of them start adding more fear to the whole space, and that's not what you want. That's
Yeah,
not
no
what you
doubt.
want. So that's why I would say, you know, I've been kind of tested in a way, right? It's like through the experience of many up and downs. So I've been kind of battle tested, and like I said, I truly understand what Bitcoin and decentralization and blockchain and the importance of holding on something that can't be controlled by governments or banks, you know, and we'll get more into it as this conversation goes. But if you truly understand, you really can't be bearish. I guess that's the thing. Too many people only concentrate on price. That's it, 100%. If it's up, it's good. It's down, it's bad. That's it, right? But with crypto, it's different. It's similar to tech companies, but not really. We're talking about a new emerging class of projects and assets that really can't be measured with traditional means. Let's just say it that way. But anyways, that's why I feel like I am the biggest hopium dealer, because people do tune in whenever they feel down or gloomy or want to get educated. Because I like to think I'm consistent. I like to think that, you know, I have the same mindset no matter what. And I try to get people through the hard times.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, I hope people take that to heart and really think about that. If we think about the downtimes, like, you know, the time that we're in right now, some people would say that this is the best time to get involved for a lot of reasons. But you know, what is your opinion? Is this a time where things are building in the background and things are growing, but people are just looking at the numbers and not paying as much interest? I'm just curious, you know, if there was an advantage to the downtime, what happens during the downtime for these companies and newer companies, do you think?
Um, I think it, well, it depends on which side you're looking at, I guess. And if you think about it, it's a good time for all sides. Let me explain. So, for example, the greatest companies that came out of the last downturn, like when we had a downturn like 2017, when the bubble burst last time, and 2018, 19, 20, and you know, we had a lot of companies go down, and if you're just looking at the price, some of them were down 95, 97, 98, 99%. But the ones that continue to build during that time, they continue to move forward with their roadmap, their development, their upgrades, their partnerships. Those companies became the biggest ones in 2021, and arguably still the biggest companies today in the crypto space. Okay. So you can't just judge things by the price always, because there are a lot of these projects that are simply, they're run well by great leaders that know what they're doing, and they just continue to build and build and build. And if you're building, you know, during bad times, during like a down market right now, this is the best time, because when things get better, then you know what, you haven't lost any time, you haven't lost any developments, and you're better off now because you have grown so much. And it just, you know, there's an exponential effect as things get better. So from a project perspective, definitely great to be building. You definitely don't want to stop development. You don't want to stop communicating with the people that have been with you, right? And a lot of projects do, unfortunately, because again, through bad management, bad finances, bad whatever, there's a lot of things that can happen, and then they end up getting crushed, right? And if you look at it from aside from a retail investor perspective, this is a great time to be getting in, right? No one, I've always said this, no one knows top or bottom. There's people that claim they do, maybe they get lucky once in a while, but no one truly knows top or bottom. And I've learned this over the last 20 plus years, through all my failures. I've learned, don't try to time top or bottom. And I've gone back and calculated all those times, all the mistakes I've made. The biggest mistakes have been trying to time markets. And had I just not done that, or have I tried not to time it and just bought into the project I really believed in and just kept DCAing and kept holding them, I'd be much better off shape now than trying to kind of guess and try to outsmart the market. Because one thing's for sure, no one knows how to outsmart the market. You even talk to someone like, I know you guys had Raoul Paul on before. You talk to guys like that that's been around even longer than me, all the famous investors of Wall Street, the self-made billionaires, they all tell you the same things. Like, no one knows day to day. No one could tell you what's going to happen next week. But, you know, we study the environment, we study what's going on, and generally speaking, we buy when others are fearful. We buy when other people are selling. And that's how they make their money. They buy low and then they sell high. So that's kind of how I see it from both sides. If you're a project, you definitely want to continue building and you don't want to give up. And as a retail investor, you may be down. Unfortunately, you may be down, but you're not out. The only way you're down and out is if you're truly down and out and you're down and you sell. But if you continue to focus on what you believe in and kind of take advantage when you can of the low prices that we're seeing right now, and you DCA and you hodl, I think that's the best way to do it than try to outsmart the market.
Yeah, I mean, my magic 8 ball has been broken for a long time, so I definitely appreciate that message, and so thank you for that. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't give you an opportunity to comment on one of the other pieces of the downturn, which is a company like FTX. Do you have any thoughts that you might want to share with everybody? I know you've done a lot of reporting on this and following this story, so perhaps there might be some words that you want to share with the community around that.
Well, the main message I've been the main message I've been sharing with my audience is that don't think that Bitcoin and crypto, well, let me tell you that. Don't think that FTX is a true reflection of Bitcoin and crypto, because that's what media tries to portray. That's what a lot of naysayers, a lot of bears will try to portray. They'll say, hey, just look at it. Look at FTX. It's a mess, right? So that means every project in the space is a mess. And that's not true. That's not true. With any industry, there's going to be bad actors. Unfortunately, when things are hot, like in 2021, a lot of people made a lot of money. A lot of projects made a lot of money. A lot of exchanges made a lot of money. And unfortunately, the projects with inexperienced leaders, they made some rash moves. Could have been they marketed too much. They didn't pay attention enough to security, or they just mishandled customer assets, which is the worst, right?
Yeah.
And that's what FTX did, unfortunately. SBF right now is on a tour trying to claim that, you know, he just didn't know any better. He didn't know what's going on in Alameda. You know, even if that was true, still, he's the CEO. He was the one in charge of things. So there's really no excuse for that. So again, even though FTX is, the situation is bad, but we have seen situations like this in crypto before. We have seen other exchanges go down. We have seen other projects go down. We have seen massive hacks happen, right? But doesn't mean that the industry is down and out. We'll get through this, just like we have gone through many of these periods before. But I like to think that every time we go through one of these events, it makes the community stronger. And as we hopefully not make the same mistakes going forward, I think that the industry, you know, just learns from these mistakes and gets stronger. So that's the bottom line, is that FTX is not a reflection upon everything else that's good out in this space.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. If you think about the regular financial markets, you have a lot of previous examples where, you know, weird things or bad things had happened and people are still in the stock market. So I think it's a matter of maturity and timing, and for people to just get more understanding and education. So
yeah, I mean, we had the Madoffs before, and we had Enron crashes before. You know, that doesn't mean that every other company out there or every other hedge fund is bad, right? So it's kind of the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, speaking about Enron, the person who went in to investigate the FTX worked on Enron as well, and he said, yeah, it's not so great inside there when you look at the paperwork. So that's a little bit weird that the same person's working both cases, so to speak. But
I don't think that's a coincidence. I think because he was appointed because he, you know, the judge really wanted to figure out what was going on inside FTX.
Yeah, absolutely. Other things that I think about during this time are the macroeconomic effects, right? Like what the Fed is doing, what DXY is doing, and things like that. Do you have any thoughts on inflation or DXY and what kind of impact that might have on the markets or the crypto markets or crypto space?
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, there is a huge correlation with Bitcoin, along with traditional markets, mainly I think tech and NASDAQ right now. And the reason why there's this correlation is because you have a lot of people that treat both as the same thing because they don't quite understand. And I think a lot of it is due to institutions and Wall Street getting involved in this space, and they just treat everything as a risk-on asset, meaning that high growth when things are good, right? But when things are bad, you got to just dump it all. And I think that's why there's this correlation. I say unfortunately because Bitcoin was created to go against everything else. It was created to be a store of value and a hedge against inflation, and the way that people can opt out of the current financial system. So it's unfortunate that there is a correlation there. And 2021, we definitely saw in 2022. This year, as it's ending, we definitely see it now. But as the space matures and grows, I think that decoupling will happen. But there's definitely that correlation right now. But as for just my overall thoughts about the macro conditions, in the US, I would say it's definitely much better than some of the other parts around the world. The Eurozone and UK and other countries like Germany, Italy, their inflation is much higher than ours and continues to climb. And that's because their central banks were a little bit slower in raising their rates. Now, our Fed Chair Powell took a lot of slack for saying for going maybe too aggressive, but things are looking a little bit better. We've gotten a few inflation readings that show that inflation didn't stop, but it's kind of tapering out, and that's a good thing. Overall economic data shows that we are slowing down, and that's what Powell wants. Honestly, he wants things to slow down. So the housing market has slowed down, consumer spending has slowed down, jobs have slowed down, right? So we're seeing these things, and that's why I'm hopeful that this next meeting that we're having December 14, when the FOMC Board of Governors get together and talk about the next rate hike, I'm hopeful that the rate hike will be less, probably 50 basis points. But then in 2023, that it starts tapering down until there's no rate hike. So I'm looking forward to that. But ultimately, people have to understand that inflation is a silent tax. No one likes taxes. Okay.
Yeah,
no one likes the government taking our money away, our hard-earned money. But inflation is a silent tax, and it kills people's buying power every year, 2 to 3%. But the last few years has escalated tremendously. Certain type of things that we buy, like food, for example, up nearly 100%. And of course, everything else has gone up as well. So inflation is definitely a real issue, especially now. And there's countries around the world that's much worse than us. So these are things that I think people didn't really pay attention to so much before, when inflation was 2 to 3% a year. But now up to 7-8% in many countries in Europe, above double digits, people are paying attention. They're realizing you can't just hold enormous amount of cash, because if you do, it's going to be eaten away over time. So I think that more and more people are starting to learn about alternatives, what else they could put their money into to kind of opt out of the situation. And that's why I think a lot of people are starting to learn about Bitcoin, because in my opinion, it's the greatest store of value that we have today.
Okay, that's cool, actually. Since you say that people should learn about Bitcoin, and you've been around in this industry for so long, what is your take of a Bitcoin maxi position versus everything else? I'll just put alts and everything else. Do you have a feeling on that? I think I know your theory on it, but I would love for everyone to learn about it, because a lot of folks are coming in brand new to the Web3 space, not just within our community, but everywhere. So that's a debate that we see all the time, and just curious on your thoughts.
Yeah. So, my overall sentiment is everyone in the crypto space should be helping each other, but that's definitely not true. It's been said crypto people are very, very tribal. They're protecting their bags. So you do have people attacking each other because they think that somehow they're protecting the bags of the projects they hold. And it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's really quite silly. Everyone needs to come together, really. I mean, you could criticize other projects. That's fine. You could call them out when there's problems. But this constant bashing serves no one good. And unfortunately, I feel like, there's this tension also between Bitcoin maxis and everything else. And unfortunately, you're seeing the Bitcoin maxis kind of kick that up even more now that FTX has gone under, because again, they're trying to associate everything outside of Bitcoin being the same. Like FTX is a reflection of everything else. And that's just not true. How I see it is Bitcoin is by itself. It doesn't really compete with anything else. So that's why I think this argument about how everything else is bad and Bitcoin is good it doesn't make any sense, and almost makes the Bitcoin maxi seem a little desperate. There's no need for that. If if you truly believe in Bitcoin and you know what Bitcoin's about, you know that Bitcoin is created to be a store of value. As simple as that. There is a set supply, 21 million, that will ever be. And the inflation rate that gets pushed every single year gets cut every 4 years. So the inflation rate, the number of Bitcoin being released per year, stays the same roughly for 4 years, and then it gets cut in half, right? And that cycle will keep going and keep going and keep going until there is no more to be released. So we don't really have anything else out there outside of crypto space. There's no other commodity, no other investment, nothing that you could put your money into, or money itself does not have a set supply. Imagine if the oil producers, I know they have kind of faked this before, but imagine if we could verify 100% and all the oil producers around the world said, we only have enough oil for 10 years and that's it. There's no more oil that we can drill ever. Think about how much that would raise the price of oil. Yeah. Okay. Or anything else out there,
or even gold.
Yeah.
They're always discovering more gold. It's not like we've got the final supply number on gold every other year. Oh, we found another 30 billion or whatever amount of gold. So yeah, that happens as well.
I mean, every other commodity, precious metal, stock, money itself, everything else, there is no set supply. It can inflate, and we can always dig for more, or we can always create more infinitely. Okay, Bitcoin, it's set by code. It's in the code that is spread across thousands and thousands of miners worldwide. Okay, it can't be changed. So that's the thing. Bitcoin is a store of value. Okay, that to me, it's a store of value. Of course, you can do other things with it. You can buy things with it, and layering in like the Lightning Network, which is a payment network, you can pay for things really quickly around the world with Bitcoin. But ultimately, I think it's a store of value. And if you measure the performance of it in the last 10, 12 years, there's no better store of value or hedge against inflation than Bitcoin. But everything else doesn't mean that they're useless or pointless. No, quite the contrary. Ethereum and others that are in what I call L1s, L2s, they're network protocols. They're basically operating systems. They handle everything else. The creation of dApps, tokenization, decentralized finance, NFTs. They all require smart contracts. They all require networks that are quite fast and robust. And that's what everything else is. So they complement each other. They don't really compete. So that's why I feel like this argument, like Bitcoin maxis will try to tear down Ethereum or tear down Cardano or tear down Solana, right? There's no need for that, because Bitcoin is its own thing, and I consider everything else to be competing against each other, but not Bitcoin itself. So that's my view of the whole thing.
That's cool. I appreciate that. One thing I did want to touch on is the whole idea of centralized exchanges, not your keys, and true ownership. Like, there's probably a lot of confusion, and you see somebody like FTX go down and others like Voyager. How can people kind of understand that concept of true ownership and be able to protect themselves? What do you think about that, and what do you tell your community when you talk to them?
Well, one of the beauties of Bitcoin, or what Bitcoin introduced, is the fact that let me start over.
You gotta redo. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, with Bitcoin, Satoshi, what he did, or he or she or a group of people, why they created, or I'm just gonna say he for now, okay? Because no one knows who Satoshi is, but Bitcoin was created because distrust in banks overall and distrust in governments overall. So they created something that was decentralized, for the people, by the people, that can't be controlled by governments or central banks or banks overall. And in order for that to happen, you need a system so that you could actually control things, right? You could control the network, or you can control, governance on the network, or you can control your own money, which is in this case Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin is spread out with thousands of miners. No one person can change the code and force all the miners to adopt, right? So even though, yes, it's open source, but unless you can convince the entire community to support new code, it's not Bitcoin. It'll just be a fork of Bitcoin, right? So there's beauty in that. You can't have any one centralized person or entity just change things, just like the Federal Reserve. If they want to create more money, they can. They have the ability to. But if one person wants to create more Bitcoin, it can't not happen, right? Cannot happen. But part of that is also, well, if this whole thing is decentralized and not controlled by any one person, right? We have to make sure that no one can stop transactions. You have to be able to control your own money, because unlike a transaction on, let's say, the Visa network or MasterCard network or Western Union or any payment network that we have today, Swift, banking transactions, right? There's always someone in the middle that can stop transactions. You send PayPal, is notorious for this. You send someone money, they will stop your transactions. Not only that, they will lock your account up and ask you to verify. Like, why are you sending this money? Who is it going to, right? And sometimes even for goods, they force you to comply with all these things. They'll do a credit check. They want to know where you're buying it from, your receipts, all these things, right? So with Bitcoin, you don't have anyone that can say no to you. You control your own wallet, right? And you get to send another wallet whatever you want. You want to send them some Bitcoin, 1 Bitcoin, 0.1 Bitcoin, 1,000,000 Bitcoin, you could do so, and there will be no one in the middle to stop you, right? And that is another beauty of Bitcoin. Well, at least what it brought, because most of the crypto is like this. And that wallet, you have to safeguard it. It's yours, right? So there's no recourse. You are essentially acting as your own bank. And that's how you truly break free from the financial system. Because if you distrust governments, you distrust central banks, you distrust banks in general, well, then you have to safeguard your own money. And that's where the not your keys, not your crypto comes from, because all wallets are basically safeguarded by yourself, right? There's a private key that is combined with a public key that gives you access to your wallet. Your crypto is stored on a blockchain. Okay, it's not stored in your wallet. It's stored on a blockchain, but that private key allows you to access it. So all the wallets out there right now is like fancy versions of encryptions, software that pretty much helps you safeguard your private key. But ultimately, the private key is what gives you access to your crypto. So when you're talking about centralized exchanges like Coinbase or Binance or even FTX or anyone else, they essentially control that private key. They're just giving you a username and password, but they are acting like PayPals of the world. They basically, they can stop your transactions. They can lock you out of your account. And unfortunately, in some cases, if they go bankrupt, they take all of your crypto with them, right? So that's the difference. But of course, centralized exchanges do have their convenience. So they have a ton of wallets out there. They have a ton of tokens. Makes easy. You can buy things very easily. You can trade things very easily. You can onboard cash really easily. So there are definitely conveniences to them, but ultimately they control the keys to your wallet, not you. So that's why, especially now more than ever, it's important for people in the space to kind of learn how to control their own wallets, control their own keys, and control their own assets, essentially, right? So that's the difference. But with safeguarding your own crypto, safeguarding your own assets, comes a lot of responsibilities that some people do not want.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do have to safeguard your private key. So normally with the hardware wallet, they give you a recovery phrase, right? That is the most important thing that you need to safeguard, not the device itself. The device could get lost, stolen. You could crush it under your car. Does not matter. That recovery key is what matters. So that is what you need to safeguard. And for a lot of people, they don't want that responsibility. They think, oh, that's too much. I'd rather trust someone else to kind of safeguard for me. So I think that's something that preventing a lot of people from safeguarding their own crypto. And also there's a learning curve to send outside of a centralized exchange like Coinbase, because while things are in Coinbase, it's very easy. It's just so easy. You just leave it and do whatever you want and exit out. But then, to learn how to safeguard your own crypto in a private, with a hardware wallet or mobile wallet, you have to learn how to withdraw, right? And then there's always that awkward feeling when you're withdrawing, like, did my funds actually go to the right address? And you have to wait for it and all this stuff. But after people know about it and learn about it, it's actually quite simple.
But wait, it doesn't say confirmed. It says not confirmed. Does that mean it's good or bad? Yeah, no, it's a fun journey. I'll say that. It's a fun journey. All right, thanks so much. George, any other closing thoughts that you might have for everyone?
No, I mean, hopefully I answer everyone's question. I stream every day, basically twice a day, to kind of help educate people on some of the things I've talked about, and also to cover current news events. 2022 has been very rough for everyone. We're going through a time that we have never seen before. We're going through a time where we're getting a Fed, in my mind, a Fed-induced recession, something that we haven't ever seen before due to high inflation, right? So times right now, it's very wonky. So I know that it could be confusing. A lot of things are seemingly moving backwards. Like when we get bad economic data, why does that cause the market to go up? It should be vice versa. Like when we get good economic data, we get the market downturn. So right now it's very confusing, but hopefully everyone understands that things come in waves. There will always be cycles. Bitcoin goes through these many times, and it has withstood all of them, and I believe it will withstand whatever we're going through right now. And greater things are coming, not just for Bitcoin, but an entire crypto space. There's so much innovation that is still happening, and there's things that we can't even imagine today 5 years from now. So there's just a lot of great things. So hopefully everyone stays strong and stay focused.
Perfect. I would say that my hopium tank is quite full right now, which is kind of what I always need. So I do appreciate that. And thank you, George, for taking the time to come meet with us. I've really enjoyed it. I hope everyone else did enjoy it. And, I could think of 1,000 other questions I'd ask you. So, I'll keep you on my email speed dial, as it were, and dating myself saying speed dial. But in any case, we'll stay in touch, and perhaps, we could talk again in the future. I think there's probably going to be a lot of interest for that. So thank you again. And thank everybody else for spending the time.